Are the G20 failing to come to a consensus over the war in Ukraine as they continue, or G20 leaders continue to talk in Brazil? In their final statement, the leaders welcomed all initiatives to support durable peace in Ukraine, but did not elaborate on how that might be accomplished. As they did last year, they condemned, quote, the use or threat of force to seek territorial acquisition, but made no mention of Russian aggression. Russia is a G20 member. Leaders also expressed concern about the situation in Gaza and Lebanon. They called for ceasefires in both conflict-ravaged areas and stressed the urgent need for aid as well as better protection of civilians. But no names were mentioned. The climate crisis topping the agenda for the second and final day of the summit, the G20 statement recognizing the need for more funding in the battle against climate change, but did not specify who will foot the bill. Kate Fisher joining us live from Rio de Janeiro. Kate, of course, Russia is a G20 member, but any other reasons why G20 leaders are divided on conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East?
Yeah, there are. I mean, President Xi Jinping of China and President Biden of the United States, the two richest countries here, have very different views on this conflict. And that is one of the reasons that the wording in this communique is so general. There is, for example, no mention of the North Korean troops that are being deployed on behalf of Russia against Ukraine, something that the US has condemned and talked to President Xi Jinping about, but has not managed to change anything there. And just as President Xi is calling for no more escalation of wars, no more fanning of the flames, President Biden has used this summit to call for more support for Ukraine, and as you mentioned, has just allowed American long-range missiles to be used by the Ukrainians against Russia, thus fanning the flames. So these are very different views from the world's two leading economies, but of course, things are likely to change come January when there is a new US president who has said he wants to end these wars as quickly as possible.
Okay, of course, climate on the agenda at discussions at the G20 today. The statement we've seen repeating essentially last year's promise to, or rather urging to increase funding to tackle climate change. What might stand in the way of making any progress on that in talks today?
Again, this is a big source of contention between these countries. Some of the more wealthy countries who already contribute a lot of money towards climate change finance want some of the richer developing countries to contribute more. People like countries like China and those oil-producing Middle Eastern countries, they want them to give more, but developing countries are pushing back against that. And you'll see that in the wording here. It's very generalized, it's not specific. And that is what UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for. He said these countries, the richest in the world, need to try and break the stalemate on climate talks. He's urged them to take the lead and make some specific goals. Economists say there needs to be $1 trillion a year, but this statement released does not give any of those specifications. It says more needs to be done, but it doesn't say how this should be achieved. And at the moment, we've only got till the end of the week for these talks in Azerbaijan, the COP29 to finish. And at the moment, these leaders here at G20 haven't managed to break that stalemate.
Well, thanks for that. Kate Fisher reporting live there from the G20 Summit from Rio de Janeiro.